The exact millisecond your head hits the pillow should be the best part of your day. The house finally went silent. Your body is heavy, your shoulders ache from the accumulated tension, and your eyes burn from exhaustion. You pull the covers, close your eyes, and exhale, hoping sleep brings the relief you so desperately need and deserve. But that is exactly when the nightmare begins. The very moment your body tries to surrender to fatigue, your brain makes a violent move in the opposite direction. It turns the emergency engine on maximum power. An unstoppable avalanche of thoughts invades your mind. You just lay down, but your head is already living tomorrow's problems. You think about the bills that don't add up, the deadlines that are expiring, the piled-up messages on your phone, and that suffocating feeling that you are constantly late for your own life. Your body begs for rest, but your mind screams at every moment that you simply do not have the right to stop. Anyone who lives the cruel reality of a racing mind and chronic exhaustion knows perfectly well what I am talking about. The insomnia that hits as soon as you lay down isn't just a lack of sleep. It is the psychological torture of being trapped in a body that desperately needs to sleep, commanded by a brain that refuses to shut down. And the worst part of all this, what truly destroys your mental health, is not the physical fatigue. The worst part is the constant guilt. We were taught and programmed by this modern society to believe that rest is a sign of weakness. We bought the brutal lie that if we stop to breathe for 1 second, the world will swallow us whole. And religion, unfortunately, usually throws even more weight on your shoulders. There is a silent belief that having faith means being an unbreakable spiritual machine, that you need to be always strong, always producing, always taking care of everyone, and never complaining. When exhaustion finally knocks you down on the bed, the first thought that comes is that you are failing God. You think your faith is weak because your body can't take another step. But what most people completely ignore about the scriptures is that you are not the first to feel this absurd level of pressure. What you are feeling is not a lack of faith. It is the collapse of your system. And Jesus Christ himself knows exactly what that is. The image we usually have of Jesus is almost always of a superhero who walked the earth without feeling pain, without feeling hunger, and without feeling the crushing weight of human demand. But the Bible shows us a completely different scenario. Jesus experienced physical and mental exhaustion. He felt the weight of having thousands of people sucking every drop of his energy. And the way he dealt with that collapse hides the definitive answer to calm your racing mind today. The Bible reports a specific moment, recorded in the book of Mark, that most people read completely superficially. The scene describes Jesus and his disciples surrounded by a crowd so suffocating and desperate that the text says they didn't even have time to eat. Try to visualize this scene with raw, naked eyes, not with that childish religious filter. Imagine the scorching heat, the thick dust rising in the air, the deafening noise of thousands of people screaming his name, pulling his clothes, and demanding that he solve every single one of their problems. Jesus was healing, teaching, and giving absolutely everything he had, but he was inhabiting a human body, made of flesh, blood, and nerves. He felt the sweat drip down his face, felt his stomach growl with hunger, and felt his muscles give way to the weight of such exhaustion. The disciples were reaching their physical, emotional, and psychological limit. They were one step away from breaking entirely. And this is exactly where the image of the Iron Messiah, that spiritual machine that never needs a break, falls apart. Jesus did not turn to the disciples and tell them to pray more, fast more, or ignore the fatigue because the mission was too important. Pay close attention to what he actually did. Jesus looked at the deep exhaustion of his friends, felt his own fatigue, and gave a shocking order. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. He didn't say that as empty motivational advice. It was a strategic direction of survival. Jesus knew perfectly well that if they continued at that frantic pace, delivering energy non-stop to those who wouldn't stop sucking it, their system would go into total collapse. The great and cruel lie they sold you is that you need to handle everything, all the time. You faithfully believe that being a good professional, an excellent partner, or a true Christian means being available 24 hours a day. You feel a crushing guilt for turning off your phone, for not answering a message right away, for saying no to an absurd request. You carry the illusion that you need to be the savior of your own little world. But the true and only savior of humanity, the one who had the power to heal any pain with a simple touch, decided that there was an exact moment to turn his back on the crowd, get in a boat, and escape into the silence. Think about the absurd impact of this revelation on your life. Jesus chose to let people wait. He chose to leave problems unsolved that day, solely and exclusively to preserve his own mind and the sanity of those who walked with him. If the very creator of the universe recognized that the human body has a non-negotiable limit, who are you to think you can live without resting? Who are you to punish and torture yourself every night for not having solved all the problems of the world before laying your head on the pillow? What is missing in your life is not more willpower, more coffee, or more hours of work. What is missing is learning to use strategic escape. Think with me about the greatest miracle you never heard about in Sunday sermons. While the crowd squeezed together on the edge of the beach, screaming for help and attention, Jesus did something that, for our sick modern mentality, would be considered the peak of selfishness. He simply turned his back. The sacred text clearly says that he told the disciples to get in the boat and go to the other side of the lake, while he himself went up the mountain to be alone. Jesus did not attend to everyone. He left sick people on the beach. He left people crying in the sand. He did not empty the inbox of that crowd before going to rest. He simply imposed an impassable limit between the inexhaustible need of others and his own sanity. If this shocks or bothers you, it is because your mind was brutally domesticated to be a slave to productivity and the approval of others. We were conditioned to feel paralyzing guilt every time we say no to someone. You think you need to answer that work message at 11 at night. You believe you need to solve your entire family's crisis. You convinced yourself that the world will collapse if you are not in absolute control of all the tiny details of your routine. But Jesus, the very Son of God, who had infinite power to heal all those people in the blink of an eye, chose the strategic escape. He knew the human body was not designed to withstand the crushing load of stimuli, problems, and pains of other people all the time. The great tragedy of your nocturnal anxiety is that you lost the ability to impose limits. You lie in bed, but you take the whole world with you under the covers. Your phone is right next to you, bombarding your exhausted brain with artificial lights, with urgencies that are not yours, with tragedies you have no way to control. You are living in a state of continuous alert, like a soldier in a silent war that never ends. And the sky-high price of this is your peace, your physical health, and, ironically, your own faith. Because it is humanly impossible to hear the soft voice of God when your mind is deafened by the constant noise of your own demands. Jesus' escape to the mountain was not an act of weakness. It was the greatest and deepest act of spiritual and biological preservation he could teach us. He showed us that rest is not a reward you earn only after finishing all the work, because the work never ends. Rest is a weapon. It is a protective barrier. You need to learn to say no to the chaos, no to the infinite demands, and no to your own racing mind. True spirituality requires you to recognize your size and your human limitation. As long as you try to play God, trying to solve the entire universe with your own hands, exhaustion will continue to crush your chest without mercy. The cure is not enduring more. It is having the relentless audacity to stop. There is an invitation made by Jesus that you have probably heard hundreds of times, but perhaps never understood the psychological depth it carries. He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Traditional religion turned this phrase into a cliché of comfort for moments of grief or extreme sadness. But in reality, this is the greatest mental health treatise ever uttered in human history. Pay close attention to the choice of words. Jesus did not promise the problems would disappear. He didn't say the bills would be magically paid or that people would stop demanding things from you. He offered rest to those who are burdened. And the burden doesn't come from the work you do with your hands. The burden comes from the mental weight of trying to control what is not under your domain. The true fatigue that steals your sleep is not physical. It is the exhaustion of trying to be the god of your own life. It is the desperate attempt to predict the future, to avoid all failures, and to ensure that no one is disappointed in you. Jesus' invitation to rest is actually an invitation to renounce control. When you lay your head on the pillow and your mind starts projecting tomorrow's disasters, the only real antidote is not trying to solve those problems in your head. The antidote is absolute surrender. It is having the courage to tell yourself that the world will keep spinning perfectly well, even if you are not in charge. When you finally understand that the one who sustains the universe does not take vacations and does not sleep, your brain understands that it can shut down. The cortisol drops, the tension in the shoulders disappears, and sleep becomes an act of profound trust, not a state of vulnerability. The big problem is that our society does not allow us to live like this naturally. We are bombarded all the time by anxiety triggers, cruel comparisons on social media, and a culture that idolizes burnout. Listening to this message today will bring you immediate relief. But tomorrow morning, when your phone beeps with the first urgency of the day, your nervous system will try to throw you back into the abyss of worry. To break this vicious cycle and build a mind shielded against burnout and chronic exhaustion, you don't just need inspiration, you need a daily method, a mental and spiritual re-education that works in practice, in the middle of the chaos of real life. It was exactly to solve this, definitively, that we created a structured and profound guide. A material made to take you by the hand and teach you how to apply the true rest of Christ in the era of digital exhaustion. It is a practical manual for those who are tired of surviving and want to go back to living with peace. If you want to silence your mind, learn to set healthy boundaries, and find the relief your body and soul beg for, the path is drawn. Access to this guide is in the link here in the description and also in the first pinned comment. You do not need to keep carrying this weight alone. Take the next step, click the link, and learn to rest for real.